My girlfriend left me for a luxury car heir after her family mocked my blue-collar dreams. Now she's broke, he's gone, and I own the empire they laughed at. With a single, searing truth, I dismantled her gilded illusion, exposing her betrayal in a showdown that redefined my destiny. Buckle up for a pulse-pounding saga of heartbreak, ambition, and a comeback that'll grip you to the end. When I was 16, I started working at my Uncle Tom's auto shop, not because he wanted to hire me. He actually tried to talk me out of it, saying I should focus on school. But I was tired of wearing second-hand clothes and seeing my mom exhausted all the time. Plus, I always had a thing for cars. I used to spend hours watching YouTube videos about engines and modifications, sketching designs in my beat-up notebooks during class. Uncle Tom's shop was my Harvard. Every day after school, I'd head straight there to sweep floors, organize tools, whatever needed doing. The older mechanics started teaching me stuff when they saw I was actually interested. By 17, I could do an oil change with my eyes closed. By 18, I was helping with engine rebuilds. Here's where it gets interesting. One day, this dude rolls in with a clapped-out Dodge Viper. I spent 3 weeks staying late after my regular hours, researching forums, trying innovative fixes. Finally got it running better than new. "You're a genius," the client raved, shaking my hand. Word spread after that. If you had a performance car that needed serious work, Uncle Tom's was the place to go, and I was the kid to ask for. I graduated high school with decent grades, but college wasn't really in the cards. I went to trade school instead and got all my certifications. That's where I met Claire. She brought her Mercedes to the shop where I was doing my apprenticeship. Nothing special, just a C-Class her daddy bought her for her 21st birthday. But she was different from the usual rich girls. She actually seemed interested when I explained what was wrong with her car, didn't mind my oil-smeared hands, and even laughed at my engine puns. We started dating in a whirlwind, and "You're going places," she said, her eyes gleaming. Looking back, I think she saw me as her rebellion against her stuck-up family. Except I wasn't even a rebel, just a working-class dude who was good with cars and had big dreams. Those first couple of years were actually pretty great. She'd bring me lunch at the shop and hang out while I worked on projects. I started doing side jobs, saving up every penny I could. I had this vision of opening my own place. Not just another repair shop, but a high-end custom garage. The kind of place where people bring their Bugattis and Ferraris for serious work. Claire seemed supportive, always talking about how she believed in me. Her family, though? Holy hell. Imagine every stereotype about old money snobs. Her dad, Mr. Elite Financier, would ask me condescending questions about my little car passion at family dinners. Her mom would constantly bring up how her friend's son was thriving at business school, or how her cousin's husband just became CEO at his tech firm. But I kept my cool and focused on my goals. By 25, I had a solid reputation in the Chicago car scene. I started getting some high-end clients through word of mouth, and was even featured in a local car magazine for a custom restoration I did on a 1969 Chevrolet Corvette. Things were looking up. Claire and I had been together for 5 years at this point. We talked about marriage, kids, the whole thing. I was saving up for a ring. Simple but heartfelt, it was honest money I'd earned with my own 2 hands. I had this plan to propose once I secured the loan for my shop. Then everything went to hell. Every year, Claire's family hosted this fancy charity gala for some ocean conservation foundation. Usually I'd find an excuse to skip these things, but this time Claire insisted, saying it was important to her family that I be there. I busted my ass to finish up a client's Ferrari 488 early so I could make it. I even bought a new suit. Modest but sharp. A step up from my usual Macy's specials. I spent 4 hours watching YouTube videos on how to tie a proper double Windsor knot. The gala was at this ridiculous manor outside the city. I felt out of place the second I walked in, but I was trying to play it cool. That's when Edward Harrington IV made his grand entrance. This douchebag pulls up in a brand new Pagani Huayra, except his was fresh off the showroom floor. He walks in wearing what I later found out was a $200,000 zero-cent suit, some fancy-ass watch that probably cost more than my yearly income. Here's the real thing. Turns out his family owned Harrington Elite Motors, a chain of high-end dealerships across 4 states, the same dealerships that would sometimes send us problem cars they couldn't fix. Claire's mom practically sprinted across the room to greet him. "Edward, darling, we didn't know you'd be here." I found out later they'd specifically invited him. Next thing I know, they're steering Claire towards him, making sure they're seated together at dinner. During dinner, I had to sit there and listen to this guy brag about his latest business ventures, all funded by Daddy's money, of course. Just acquired a new dealership in Miami, he says, swirling his $3,000 0-cents wine, planning to expand into the hypercar market. I almost choked on my exotic dish they were serving. This guy wouldn't know real car work if it bit him in his designer bespoke ass. But every time he opened his mouth, Claire's parents were practically drooling. Her dad kept saying things like, "That's the kind of groundbreaking vision the industry craves." The whole time I noticed Claire getting quieter and quieter. Usually she'd jump in, talk about some of the custom work I'd done, how I was planning to open my own shop. But that night, nothing. She just sat there, nodding and laughing at Edward's terrible jokes about people who still buy electric cars. That hurt more than any of the subtle digs about my background. After dinner, they danced. I'm not much of a dancer, but I was trying. Then Edward cuts in all smooth with his ballroom dancing skills. Claire didn't even look back at me. The rest of the night was torture. I had to watch them dancing, talking, laughing. Her mom kept hovering around them, taking pictures, making comments about what a dazzling pair they made. Meanwhile, I'm standing by the bar, drowning my frustration in an overpriced cocktail that I couldn't really appreciate anyway. On the drive home, Claire was different, quiet. When I tried to joke about Edward being a walking stereotype, she didn't laugh like she usually would. Instead, she got defensive. "He's actually really brilliant about the industry," she said. "Maybe you could learn something about the business side from him." "You're wasting your potential," she said, her voice sharp. That's when I knew. Deep down, I think I knew right then that we were done. Over the next few months, Claire started getting more involved with her family's social circle. Suddenly, she was too busy to hang out at the shop, always had some benefit auction or social function to attend, and somehow Edward was always there too. The final straw, I found out she'd been having strategy sessions with Edward to discuss funding prospects for my future shop. It was a Monday when my life imploded. I remember because I had just finished a complex transmission rebuild on a client's Maserati Gran Turismo. I was feeling pretty good about myself. I had grease all over my hands, but a fat check in my pocket. The kind of day that usually meant a celebration beer with the guys at the shop. Then Claire texts, "Can we talk? I'll come by your place after work." I rushed home, took a quick shower, even cleaned up my small apartment above the shop. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Paid for with hard work and long hours. She shows up looking like she stepped out of a magazine. Designer everything, hair done perfectly, not a single thing out of place. Meanwhile, my hands still had motor oil under the nails that wouldn't come out no matter how hard I scrubbed. The contrast hit differently that day. "I think we need to take a break," she starts, but then comes the real gut punch. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about my future." I just sat there on my worn-out couch while she went through her obviously rehearsed speech. How she needs stability. How she's at a point in her life where she needs to think about her future seriously. How her family made her realize some things. Then the kicker, she actually had the nerve to say this. "Edward helped me understand what I really want in life. Someone established, someone who can provide the lifestyle I'm accustomed to." You know what's up? I didn't even get mad. Didn't yell or throw things. I just sat there feeling like someone had ripped my heart out through my throat. 5 years of memories flashing through my mind. All the late nights she spent at the shop with me. All the plans we made. All the times she said she believed in my dreams. "What about the shop?" I asked. "What about everything we planned?" She actually rolled her eyes. "Be realistic. Do you know how much capital it takes to compete with established luxury garages?" Edward says. I cut her off there. Edward says, "The guy who's never changed his own oil. That's who you're taking business advice from now. You'll never make it," she sneered, her words cutting deep. She got this look on her face like I was some kid who just didn't understand how the real world works. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're so focused on the technical side you don't understand the business reality. Edward has connections. He understands the elite market. I stood up. Something in me just broke. Get out. What? Get the hell out of my apartment. Take your designer bags, your business reality, and your Edward, and get out. You're pathetic, she spat, grabbing her purse. She looked shocked, probably expected me to beg, to promise I'd change, to grovel for another chance. Instead, I walked to the door and held it open. She left without another word. 3 days later, she's all over Instagram, pictures of her and Edward at some exclusive rooftop bar. His arm around her waist, both of them looking like they're shooting a commercial for rich people problems. Caption: sometimes life leads you exactly where you're meant to be. The worst part, the comments. All her rich friends saying things like, finally you guys are destined together. And this is what you deserve, girl. Like our entire relationship was just some embarrassing phase she went through. Then came the real storm. Remember that Maserati I just finished working on? The owner calls the next day, says the transmission acting up again. I was so messed up from the breakup, I must have missed something during reassembly. I had to eat the cost of fixing it. There went the fat check I was so proud of. More mistakes followed. I started drinking too much, showing up to work late, losing focus during jobs. Uncle Tom tried to talk to me about it, but I wasn't hearing it. Customers started going elsewhere. My savings for the shop drained fast between lost work and trying to drink away memories of Claire. I lost 5 more big jobs in 3 weeks. Word gets around fast in the luxury car world. 1 mistake, and your reputation takes a hit. 2 mistakes, people start looking elsewhere. Uncle Tom tried to help. He's a good dude, kept giving me chances even when I was showing up late, hungover, or both. But after I scratched a client's restored 1968 Ford Mustang because I was too drunk to notice a loose wrench on my workbench, he had to make a decision. He pulled me aside one Monday afternoon, pain all over his face. Listen, kid, I love you like a son, but I can't let you work on cars like this. You're going to hurt yourself or someone else. Take some time, get your head straight. That night I drank until I couldn't feel feelings anymore. I woke up on my bathroom floor to 5 missed calls from my landlord. Turns out I'd missed 4 months of rent on my apartment above the shop. I'd been so messed up I didn't even notice the late notices piling up. The real kick in the teeth, my savings account was almost empty. 5 years of carefully saving every penny for my dream shop, gone in less than 4 months of self-destruction between the botched jobs I had to make right, the drinking, and trying to keep up appearances on the few dates I went on. I'd burned through almost everything. I had to move back in with my mom at 27. She didn't say anything when I showed up at her door with 4 duffel bags and a box of tools, just hugged me and said dinner would be ready in 45 minutes. But I saw her crying in the kitchen later that night. That destroyed me, knowing I was making my mom cry after everything she'd sacrificed to raise me right. I started taking any job I could find, worked at Advance Auto Parts during the day, delivered food orders at night, but the worst? I had to take a job as a valet at this fancy French bistro downtown, the same kind of place I used to dream about taking Claire to once I made it. Then it happened, the moment that really broke me. I'm standing there in my valet uniform, cheap polyester pants and a red vest that made me look like a discounted usher, when up pulls this familiar Pagani Huayra, that specific shade of midnight blue that still haunts my dreams. Out steps Edward looking like a GQ model, and then Claire wearing this emerald dress that probably cost more than my car designer everything. That sapphire bracelet Edward had posted about giving her on Instagram. She saw me. I know she saw me, but she looked right through me like I was invisible, just handed me her clutch with this practiced smile you give to the help. Edward, though, actually recognized me. He gets this little smirk on his face, pulls out his wallet. "Take good care of it," he says, handing me a $300 0-cents bill. "I know how rough things have been for you lately." "Keep it together," I muttered to myself, my fists clenching. I wanted to shove that bill down his throat, wanted to tell him that I'd forgotten more about cars than he'd ever known, wanted to point out that Daddy's money doesn't make you a man. But you know what I did? I took the money because I needed it, because my mom's furnace was broken and she wouldn't let me pay to fix it. But I knew that $300 would cover the parts I needed. That night after my shift, I sat in my car, the same Viper I'd been so proud of, building up from nothing, now showing its age and neglect. I pulled out my phone, looked at Claire's Instagram. There they were, at the same restaurant I just valeted at. Perfect couple, perfect life, perfect everything. 40 lb of depression weight on my frame, cheap uniform reeking of other people's cars, that $300 0-cent bill burning a hole in my pocket. That was my rock bottom. But here's the thing about hitting bottom. Once you're there, you've got nothing left to lose. I drove home that night, walked straight past my mom watching her late-night shows, into my old bedroom that still had my high school trophies on the wall. I stood there, looking in the mirror for what felt like hours. The guy looking back. I didn't recognize him anymore. Hadn't shaved in weeks. Dark circles under my eyes, looked like a stranger wearing my face. That's when I made the decision. The decision, capital T, capital D. Because sometimes you have to completely break before you can rebuild. And rebuild, that's exactly what I was about to do. That $300 0-cent bill Edward gave me, it changed everything. The morning after the valet incident, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. Something inside me was different. I walked to my bathroom, grabbed my mom's old digital scale and faced the music, 260 lbs. I'd put on 55 pounds of pure depression weight in just a few months. I pulled out my phone, deleted every delivery app, unfollowed Claire and Edward on everything, and downloaded a fitness tracking app instead. Then, I did something I hadn't done since high school track. I put on my old running shoes and went for a run. I made it exactly 10 minutes before I thought my lungs would explode. You've got nothing but time, no girlfriend, no social life to maintain, no reputation to protect anymore, just hours and hours to rebuild yourself. So I made a plan, a real one. 5:00 in the morning, wake up, protein shake, learn about proper nutrition from YouTube. 5:30 in the morning, gym. 7:30 in the morning, advance auto parts shift. 4:30 in the afternoon, valet job. 11:00 at night, I studied business and marketing until I couldn't keep my eyes open, rinse and repeat every single day. The first month was hell, my body hurts constantly. Living with my mom at 27 felt like the ultimate failure. The valet job was a constant reminder of everything I'd lost. But I kept looking at that $300 0-cent bill on my wall. Kept thinking about Edward's smirk. Used that anger, that humiliation as fuel. By month 5, things started changing. I was down 35 lbs. Started seeing muscle definition again. The regular customers at Advance Auto Parts began asking what I was doing differently, but the biggest change was happening in my mind. See, working at Advance Auto Parts had this unexpected benefit. I got to talk to every kind of car guy in Chicago, from suburban dads working on their weekend projects to serious collectors maintaining their classics. I started noticing patterns in what they complained about, what services they couldn't find, what they wished existed. The high-end guys especially kept bitching about how the dealerships like Edward's family's chain were overcharging for basic work and screwing up the complex stuff. The more I listened, the more I saw a gap in the market. These guys wanted someone who understood both the mechanics and the high-end market. I found it during a valet shift. This massive abandoned building in River North, right between the wealthy suburbs and downtown. The previous owner went bankrupt during a market crash. The place was a mess. Broken windows, graffiti everywhere. But holy hell, the bones were perfect. High ceilings, great location, massive doors that could fit any size vehicle. During my breaks, I'd sit in my car outside that building, running numbers, sketching layouts, planning. The asking price was way out of my league. $600,000, 0 cents. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Then came the breakthrough. One night I'm valeting and this beat-up Rolls-Royce Ghost rolls in. The owner, this old-school Chicago businessman, Mr. Reynolds, says the car is making this weird noise. He's complained to 5 different dealerships, spent tens of thousands, and the problem is still there. I hear it and immediately know what it is. A classic suspension linkage issue these models have. I tell him my diagnosis. He's skeptical but desperate. Says I can look at it after my shift if I want. I spent 4 hours in that parking lot fixing his car with basic tools from my trunk. When I finish, he's shocked. He starts asking about my background, my plans. I told him everything about the warehouse I wanted to buy, about my vision for a different kind of luxury garage, about how the current market was undeserving of guys like him. The next day, he calls, wants to meet at his office. I show up in my best clothes, hands still stained with motor oil despite scrubbing them raw. He has a proposal. He'll help secure the loan for the warehouse plus $400,000, 0 cents for renovations and equipment. In return, he wants 35% of the business and first priority service for his car collection. But here's the catch. I had 5 months to prove I could run a business. I had to create a complete business plan, marketing strategy, everything. Oh, and I had to get back in good standing with the luxury car community. "You've got fire," he said, grinning. I grabbed every free business course online I could find. I spent my valet shift studying the high-end clients, how they talked, what they valued, what made them trust a business. Used my advanced auto parts connections to start rebuilding my reputation in the car community. Called in favors from every mechanic I'd ever helped. I lost another 30 pounds. Started dressing better, professional, clean, pressed clothes, even for the valet job. I changed how I talked, how I carried myself. Not pretending to be something I wasn't, but becoming the best version of who I could be. 5 months later, I walked into Mr. Reynolds' office as a different man. Physically, mentally, professionally, everything had changed. I slapped down a 200-page business plan that I'd rewritten 18 times. I had 7 luxury car owners ready to sign maintenance contracts. Had a complete renovation plan for the warehouse. He read through everything, looked at me for a long moment, then opened his desk drawer and pulled out a set of keys, the keys to the warehouse. He'd already bought it. He said he knew after month 2 that I was going to make it happen. That night, standing in my soon-to-be shop, covered in dust and cobwebs, I finally took that $300, 0 cents bill down from my wall. Not because I was over it, but because I needed room for the building permit that was going to change everything. Renovating that warehouse was like bringing a dead car back to life. You've got to strip everything down to bare metal before you can rebuild it properly. The first day I walked in as the owner, I found 5 homeless guys living in the corner office and enough pigeons to start a racing team. The roof leaked in 25 different places. The concrete floor was cracked, worse than my ex's judgment. But man, there's something therapeutic about destroying things to rebuild them better. I spent 4 weeks just demolishing interior walls and clearing out decades of industrial crap. Mr. Reynolds thought I was crazy for doing the demo work myself. But I needed this, needed to feel every piece of this place transform under my hands. It called for 5 months of renovation before opening. We did it in 9 weeks. I'm talking 22-hour days, sleeping on a cot in what would become the customer lounge, eating nothing but protein bars and energy drinks. My mom would bring me clean clothes and actual food, telling me I was working too hard, but she didn't understand this wasn't working. This was redemption. The floor ended up costing almost $75,000, 0 cents to do right. Special epoxy coating that could handle everything from oil spills to Pagani tire marks. The lifts, another $150,000, 0 cents for the good stuff. Every dollar spent was an investment in proving them wrong. Opening day was nothing fancy, no big ceremony, no ribbon cutting. I just opened the doors at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. I had exactly 7 appointments scheduled, all Mr. Reynolds' connections. By 10 o'clock in the morning, I had my first real test. A Rolls-Royce Cullinan rolls in. The owner complained about a weird noise in the engine. Other shops had quoted him $25,000, 0 cents, for a complete system replacement. It took me 4 hours to diagnose and fix a loose fuel injector that cost $500, 0 cents in parts. The look on his face when I handed him the bill. "You're a lifesaver," he said, stunned. He called 5 friends before he even left the parking lot. That's when things started moving. Word spread through the luxury car community like wildfire. This new shop in River North, the guy who runs it actually knows what he's doing. Doesn't rip you off, fair prices for quality work. By week 5, we were booked solid. 4 weeks out, I hired my first 4 mechanics, both guys I knew from my Uncle Tom's shop days, who'd been wanting to get into high-end work. I trained them myself, made sure they understood my standards, no cutting corners, no overcharging just because the client has money. Then came the game changer. The owner was this big shot in the classic car world. He brings in his 1963 Jaguar E-Type. The previous shop had totally botched the engine rebuild, wanted another $60,000, 0 cents to fix their mistakes. I spent 12 days rebuilding that engine myself, staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning studying original Jaguar manuals. When I fired it up for the first time, that inline-six singing like it just rolled out of Coventry. Man, I actually cried. The owner was so happy he featured us in his car club newsletter. Next thing you know, we're getting calls from collectors across the country. 10 months in, I had to hire 5 more mechanics. We built a reputation for being the shop that could fix the impossible problems, the ones other shops, including certain dealership chains, couldn't figure out. I started getting calls from exotic car owners tired of dealing with dealerships. Here's where it gets good. I started noticing a pattern, a lot of complaints about Harrington Elite Motors, Edward's daddy's chain. Their service department was slipping, charging crazy prices for basic work, messing up complex jobs. Why? Because Edward had convinced his old man to cut costs on technician training, figuring rich people would pay whatever they charged anyway. 1 year in, we had a 5-month waiting list. I had to start turning down regular cars to focus on exotics and classics. I expanded to the building next door, doubled our workspace, installed a specialized Bugatti diagnostic system that cost more than my first house would have. Then one day, this familiar Pagani Heir pulls up outside. Not for service, just parked there while its owner went to the new craft cocktail bar across the street. Midnight blue paint looks a little dull now. Brake rotors showing heavy wear. I could tell from the sound it needed a fuel system overhaul badly, but the owner hadn't figured out who I was yet. See, I'd stay pretty low-key. No social media presence, no advertising, all word of mouth. Local business magazines had done some pieces on the shop, but I always declined photos. It was about work. But now, watching that Pagani sit there, knowing what was coming, man, karma was about to call in her markers. 4 weeks after I saw it outside my shop, it finally showed up as a customer, not with Edward driving. He'd sent one of his dealership's porters. Apparently the car was running rough and their techs couldn't figure out why. The porter handed me the keys without having any idea who I was. I did a full inspection while the porter waited. The car was a mess. Fuel contamination, worn brake pads, transmission fluid that probably hadn't been changed since it left the factory. I wrote up a full estimate and handed it to the porter. The total came to about $28,000, 0 cents worth of work needed. The porter called Edward right there in my office. I could hear Edward through the phone. That's ridiculous. Our service department said it just needs a diagnostic reset. This is the best shop in Chicago, the porter insisted. Edward shows up 2 hours later, probably expecting to throw his weight around. He walks into my office without recognizing me at first. I'd changed a lot in 5 years, gained 40 elps of muscle, grew a well-maintained beard, and wore a tailored suit instead of mechanic's overalls. The moment of recognition, pure gold. His face went through about 7 different emotions in 5 seconds. Shock, disbelief, anger, fear, and finally respect, because he knew. One look around my shop told him everything he needed to know. 8 high-end cars being worked on, 5 Ferrari certificates on the wall, and a waiting list so long we had to stop taking new clients. How, he started to ask. Hard work, I cut him off. Something daddy's money can't buy. You've outdone us, he muttered, his voice tight. He tried to save face, started talking about how we should collaborate. His dealership chain was struggling. But I wasn't interested in helping the guy who took everything from me. Your car will be ready in 4 weeks, I told him. Standard payment terms, 70% up front. The best part? He paid. He had no choice, really. His reputation was on the line, and his dealership couldn't fix the car properly. But that was just the appetizer. The main course came about a month later when I got an interesting email. Harrington Elite Motors was looking to sell some of their locations. Turns out their service department's reputation had tanked so bad they were losing tens of millions. High-end clients were leaving in droves, many of them coming to us. Mr. Reynolds sits on the board of several banks that held the Harrington family's business loans. One phone call from him, and suddenly those loans were being reviewed closely. The real cherry on top. Claire showed up at my shop unannounced one afternoon. She looked different. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by regular retail stuff. That perfect rich girl polish had faded. Edward's family's financial troubles had hit home. No more unlimited credit cards. No more luxury shopping spree. "I made a mistake," she said, standing in my office. The same office where I'd once dreamed of building something great. "I never should have left. You were the real thing, and I was too blind to see it." "I was a fool," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Just then Rachel walked in, my girlfriend of 2 years, a former professional Formula Drift racer who now runs her own performance engineering company. She's everything Claire pretended to be. Smart, driven, genuine. The look on Claire's face when Rachel kissed me hello. "You lost him," Rachel said coolly, her arm around me. "The mistake wasn't leaving," I told Claire. "The mistake was thinking I needed you to succeed. Today, my shop is the go-to place for exotic cars in the Midwest. We've got an 8-month waiting list, 5 locations, and a reputation for excellence that money can't buy." Edward's family had to sell most of their dealerships. Karma's a force when you build your success on sand. Last I heard, he's working as a used car manager in Indiana. Claire, she's still with him, but not by choice. Turns out when you build your whole life around someone else's money, it's hard to walk away when that money disappears. Her Instagram these days is all "thankful for life's lessons" posts. I just signed a deal to open 4 more locations. Rachel and I are getting married next summer, having the ceremony in the first warehouse I renovated. Mr. Reynolds is going to be my best man, that $300.00 bill Edward gave me when I was a valet. It's framed in my office right next to this year's Entrepreneur of the Year award. Sometimes I think about that night, as a valet, watching them walk into that restaurant like they owned the world. Everything I've built since then, it's not about revenge. It's about proving that real success comes from genuine passion, hard work, and never letting someone else define your worth. The empire I built, it's not built on family connections or trust funds. It's built on stripped knuckles, late nights, and a genuine love for what I do. And that's something no one can ever take. I rose from the ashes of Claire's betrayal, but the scars remain, a quiet reminder of the cost of trust, fueling my drive to forge a legacy that stands unbreakable.